It's finally a True Blue Friday here in Seattle and all over Seahawks country. Seattle travels to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers on Saturday night. I've got the full game previewed today ahead on Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12s. This is Nick Lee, your host for the first True Blue Friday episode of Locked On Seahawks. As I said yesterday, Corbin is away for the weekend and getting set to get married, so congrats to him once again. Really excited for him in his future. And thanks to all the 12s for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We really appreciate it. Later in the show, I'm going to talk about a full preview of the matchup with the Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and some players to watch for on both sides of the ball. And what's new for the Steelers and the Seattle, and how in Seattle and Pittsburgh are kind of in similar situations in their franchise history right now, kind of flesh that out as well. Now for your lead story here on Locked On Seahawks. There is a lengthy list of Seahawks who will not participate in Saturday's preseason opener for a variety of reasons. Most of them are the injury bug. The injury bug has really hit the Seahawks hard. Nothing super serious where, like season altering or season ending for most of the guys. But some dinks and bruises and dings here and there and soft tissue stuff that can nag. So you certainly don't want to push it here in the first preseason game of the year. And a lot of these guys, maybe if this was a primetime game in December, they're probably giving it a go. But since it's the first preseason game, obviously you don't want to mess with that. So the first one, of course, the cornerback room has really been hit hard. Artie Burns, John Reed, especially Sidney Jones as well. So the Seahawks are really hurting in the cornerback room. Another reason why, as we talked about yesterday, that they signed Jamison Houston. Look for the rookies to get a big chunk of playing time in week one. And Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen, really excited to see how they shake out. Jordan Brooks also will likely be out with a hamstring issue. And at this point, it doesn't seem like it's anything serious. And another thing where if this were a big regular season game, he'd probably give it a go. And I'd probably say the same thing for Rashad Penny. I'm not even sure you should be playing Rashad Penny in the preseason anyway, given his injury history and his lack of durability. He's got a slight groin issue. Nothing to be super concerned about quite yet. I'm sure there'll be some belly aching about, given his lack of durability, which is understandable. That's a valid thought to enter in your mind. But he might be just in the same boat as Jordan Brooks, where if this were a bigger game, he'd probably be giving it a go. But yes, that's something to watch for perhaps later down the road with him, just because you don't want to risk injury in the preseason. I'm of the opinion you probably shouldn't even play Rashad Penny at all. Maybe not even a series, maybe like a down or a set of downs in the preseason for Rashad Penny. Get his feet wet, get him warmed up. But really, that's it. I really don't think that the Seahawks should pay or should give Rashad Penny too many snaps and too many hits and risk that in the preseason, just because we saw last year in the last 5 weeks of the season, 5-6 weeks, how valuable he can be when he is fully healthy and fully going, and everything is pointing to him having riding that momentum into the start of this year. So you'd hate for a big injury to kind of halt that momentum. So I totally understand why they're being cautious with Rashad Penny. I'm of the opinion you should hardly play him at all in the preseason, even if he was healthy. LJ Collier, another one, nagging elbow issue from the mock game last weekend. And he's doubtful for this game, which is unfortunate because obviously we've been kind of hammering home whenever we address bubble or roster bubble spots, the defensive line situation. LJ Collier is absolutely fighting for a job, and the fact that he is not going to be able to be out there for the first preseason game, and a guy like Miles Adams probably will, doesn't spell well for LJ Collier. And we pound the table. The best ability is availability, and with LJ Collier, if he's not available, how do you make it an argument to be part of this roster? I mean, you can do it in practice as much as you can, but he's got to get healthy and he's got to get back in that fight, because Miles Adams certainly is coming for it. Our friend from The Athletic, Michael Sean Dugar, tweeted yesterday, sounds like the Seahawks on Saturday will be without Artie Burns, Sidney Jones, or Artie Burns for the groin issue, Sidney Jones for that concussion, Jordan Brooks for that hamstring. Freddie Swain also added to that list with the back issue, LJ Collier with that elbow issue from the mock game. and Marquise Goodwin, the other receiver, with a hamstring issue. And he also adds that Rashad Penny does have that groin issue, but he might not have played anyway. So on the running back side, you're going to get to see a lot of Ken Walker, which for some fans should be very exciting. He should get the bulk of the first team reps tomorrow in Pittsburgh, and that should be pretty exciting. I think he's drawn rave reviews in camp, but also you could make an argument that he was the best running back of this 2022 draft class, and to get him on the field early and often in the preseason, I think is a great idea. You're not relying on him to be the number one bell cow back, where if he goes down, the whole ship sinks. So you want to get him out there in the preseason, get some NFL hits in him under his belt, get his feet wet, get his sea legs, all that good stuff, all those sayings. I think that's going to be hugely beneficial for Ken Walker. And it stinks about the cornerback room too, because they were just looking so good, and that room was being so competitive with the Sidney Jones, Artie Burns, John Reed, and Greg Bell tweeted out that as Artie Burns will be out even maybe a bit longer than just the Pittsburgh game, Pete Carroll says to expect the rookies, Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen, to get a lot of playing time, maybe even starting on Saturday, plus Michael Jackson, Elijah Jones playing corner. Kobe Bryant can also slide in and play some nickel and get some experience there at nickel. So a lot of moving pieces with the cornerback room being a bit banged up. So yeah, this is unfortunate that the Seahawks are already dealing with injuries. They're already it's a team that has a lot to prove, and the roster is a bit flawed. And this is certainly a time for them to get, or you wish that this is a time for them to get experience and not try to get healthy. This is here we are on August 12th, and then we're already talking about the Seahawks just trying to get healthy. Not a great sign. I'm hoping most of this is just keeping him out, being overly cautious, an overabundance of caution. I know we're really sick of that phrase of the last couple of years. I think that's kind of what's going on here. Coming up next, we'll dive into where these two franchises sit and how they actually are pretty similar in the current situations, talking about the Seahawks and the Steelers. This is Locked On Seahawks. Don't go anywhere. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Welcome back to Locked On Seahawks. This is your host for the day, Nick Lee. I'm playing a substitute teacher as Corbin is away preparing for his wedding. Congrats to him, and Rob also tied up in similar ongoings. And so it's just me today. You got me. Sorry about that. I hope I can deliver it to you. And of course, if you're here, thanks for listening. And I know you're here because you love the Seahawks, and I appreciate your passion and your diligence and your loyalty. So thank you. Corbin. This has been a labor of love for him, and I'm going to speak for him and Rob as well, that this podcast has taken off, and it's mostly to the hard work of Corbin and Rob. I'm kind of riding on their coattails a little bit. I'm going to try to pull a little bit more of the weight this season. So football is finally back. Let's get to this here on the eve of Seattle's preseason opener here on this Blue Friday. While it's still preseason, it won't count in the standings, won't count in the stat sheet. There's no fantasy leagues that have started, as far as I know. No NFL Red Zone yet. I'm really looking forward to that. But hey, it's football in some form, and we'll take it any way we can get it on the eve of battle here in Pittsburgh. I want to discuss where these two franchises are at. And both of them have had a winning tradition over the last decade plus, each winning Super Bowls over the last 15 years. Of course, the Steelers multiple in the last couple decades. But now they both find themselves in unfamiliar territory, at least in this era that they've been in, without a franchise iconic quarterback. For the Seahawks, of course, they are in the middle of a reload, a mild rebuild, without quarterback Russell Wilson, who is now in Denver. I know that the departure of these two quarterbacks are a bit different. Ben Roethlisberger announced his retirement. He's done playing football, and frankly, he was at the very end of his abilities, and Father Time definitely caught up with him. But a fine quarterback, at his peak, borderline Hall of Famer. And for Russell Wilson, of course, y'all know the stats. I don't need to list them off, even though I'm about to. 10 years, 9 Pro Bowls, 2 NFC titles, 1 Super Bowl. You name a passing record in franchise history, Russell Wilson's got it. He's going to have his name in the Ring of Honor. I know that might still taste a little weird in your mouth right now, but he is. He absolutely is going to have his number 3 in the rafters someday. And so he's gone. And what remains is head coach Pete Carroll, who has been here since the start of the 2010 season, just a few years after Pittsburgh hired head coach Mike Tomlin, who also had some pretty big shoes to fill himself and Bill Cowher in Pittsburgh. He began with the Steelers in 2007. Both franchises now have departed quarterbacks in Ben Roethlisberger and Russell Wilson, and both are opting to head into this new era of the franchise with those long-term head coaches, the coaches that have been there a long time, in Tomlin and Carroll. Tomlin obviously much younger than Pete Carroll. Tomlin's got some really, really good football ahead of him and ahead of his coaching career. Carroll, he's certainly in the twilight of his coaching career. Who knows when he hangs up his headset, but he's still going strong as far as best I can tell. He still acts like one of the younger coaches in the league, and his energy is infectious. So as long as that continues, I imagine that he's still going to want to coach. But yes, there are similarities, and they're trying to usher in a new era. And they're both in search of their next franchise quarterback, which we know, there's no fancy factory where you can just order. There's no Amazon, drone flying to your house to deliver a brand new franchise quarterback. It takes a lot of hard work, some trial and error, some failures to try to find that next franchise quarterback. Some franchises have been searching for decades, or searched for decades before finding one, and it's not something that is guaranteed. So both franchises are kind of entering an uncertain part of their franchise history. And of course, with the Seahawks this year, it's between Geno Smith and Drew Lock. I'm of the opinion that neither of those guys are the long-term answer that will be the quarterback for the next great Seahawks team, be it 2023 or beyond. I don't think either of those guys are the answer. Now, they might be a decent Band-Aid this year, and with the talented roster they have around them, they can rally around and put together a few wins. But neither of those guys really move the needle, I think, for me, is towards being a franchise-altering quarterback like Russell Wilson was. This year, I think, is a bit more about, establishing that solid rookie class you brought in from 2022 draft class, building that core around who that young quarterback is going to be. And I think that quarterback for the Seahawks, the next franchise quarterback, is currently in college. I don't know who that is yet. I'm going to let this college season kind of flesh itself out, because I don't want to tout, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young or whoever, and then they have a, cruddy season, or they get injured or something happen. You don't want to get ahead of yourself there. You want to let this current college football season play out, because some guys can come out of nowhere. We saw Zach Wilson at BYU. He was kind of way off the radar after 2019, but 2020 he exploded onto the scene and became a number 2 overall pick. So stuff like that can happen. So I'm not going to throw out, the Seahawks should draft X, Y, and Z guy. Not yet, not quite. But I do believe that their franchise quarterback is still in college. And for Pittsburgh, they have 3 quarterbacks in camp right now, vying for the starting job. So it's a bit different. Let's not kid ourselves. Jacob Eason really doesn't have a shot to be the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, barring some crazy injuries. And even then, the Seahawks probably bring somebody in, or maybe finally make that dreaded deal for Jimmy Garoppolo. That's many fans do not want very passionately, I've seen on social media. They have Mitch Trubisky from the Bears. He's made his way over to Pittsburgh now. Mason Rudolph, Rudolph and Trubisky both have starting experience in the NFL, much like Geno Smith and Drew Lock for the Seahawks. But where the difference is they drafted Kenny Pickett, 20th overall in the first round this past draft from Pitt. So they opted to draft a quarterback this season in the first round, no less, while the Seahawks opted out. They did not draft a quarterback. They made it pretty clear their opinion of the quarterback class coming in. We saw Malik Willis, do some really exciting things with the Titans a couple nights ago on the preseason, but there's still some question marks with him. And there's question marks all over this QB class. So there's no guarantees. And there's no guarantees next year. Let's be real about that too. But the Seahawks are opting to bide their time for next draft, while the Steelers certainly took not just a flyer, but they really think that Kenny Pickett, you don't take a guy 20th overall in the first round So that's another thing that's another similarity. Both teams have talented rosters around uncertainty at quarterback. Ever heard of TJ Watt? Best pass rusher on the planet right now. Just a half a sack away from breaking Al Baker's 43-year-old single season sacks record. He had 22 and a half sacks last year. And it's not just him. You got Cameron Hayward, you got Miles Jack, Minkah Fitzpatrick, an extremely talented defense. I would argue one of the more talented defenses in the entire NFL. So, and I'm not sure I can say the same thing about the Seahawks. They absolutely have some talent. Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, 2 Pro Bowl safeties. Jordan Brooks coming off of a fantastic year, his first real full season as the middle linebacker in Seattle. And so Darrell Taylor, I think, really has a chance to break out. So there's some similarities there in offense for Pittsburgh. You have Najee Harris, the fine young running back, Chase Claypool and George Pickens, one is rookie and Pickens, and then Chase Claypool's made some good plays and done some good things for the Steelers in the past, and I think is a fine young receiver as well. And the Seahawks, of course, have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. They have a bit of the edge in the receiver game if we're going to start comparing receiver rooms. A good stable of running backs with Rashad Penny and Ken Walker, and some Pro Bowl talent, like I mentioned, on defense. So both teams, longtime head coaches, making a transition at quarterback after saying goodbye to a franchise icon quarterback. And both still have very talented rosters. In fact, I would argue playoff caliber rosters if the quarterback situation were a bit different, I think. Especially on the Seahawks side. Now, I'm not of the opinion the Seahawks are going to make the playoffs this year. I think they're not going to go 0-17, but I just don't see how, they have a roster that can get them there, but can a quarterback not hold them back? That's just a really big question mark. But it'll be interesting to see these next couple of years where these two franchises go in very similar situations with long-term head coaches trying to find that next franchise quarterback. Coming up next, I'll give my keys to watch for as the Seahawks test themselves against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Don't miss it. You're listening to Locked On Seahawks. So let's dive into the game itself. I know it's an exercise in futility to obsess over keys to victory or highlighting the stars on each side, even though I kind of just did that last segment. The matchups, Darrell Taylor versus the offensive line, and Chase Claypool versus the rookie corners, and DK Metcalf versus Minkah Fitzpatrick, all this stuff. If we're talking about a Sunday night game in November, sure, yeah, that's where we're going to go with this. But this is preseason. The win-loss, the end game score, pretty much meaningless. So what is there to watch for? What can be gained by watching this game, even though it's a preseason game, first one, lots of unknowns, lots of feeling out. Obviously, the quarterback battle is number one. Geno Smith, Drew Lock. How many snaps does each quarterback get with the ones? How accurate are they? How in sync with the receivers are they? How knowledgeable of the offense? How comfortable they are in the pocket? How knowledgeable they are of the routes and the schemes and anticipation and arm talent. The deep ball. Will there be any big hits downfield with these two? I know that's been kind of some cause for hand wringing among fans is the lack of the deep ball that they've seen in practice. You had that with Russell Wilson. He had the best deep ball in the game. Now the Seahawks all of a sudden don't really have that in their repertoire, at least yet. They haven't proven that yet. The rookie cornerbacks, or at least the cornerbacks in general, against this receiver group for Pittsburgh, a very talented receiver group in Pittsburgh, against a beat up cornerback room, and the rookies at cornerback with Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant. Lots of action for them and really tough tests, I think, as well. And speaking of rookies, my third one, the rookie snaps. Speaking of rookies, Charles Cross, Boye Mafe, Ken Walker, Abe Lucas, the rookie corners, Bo Melton, the receivers as well. Now Tyreek Smith might not play as well. He's kind of banged up. I think he's got a hip issue. But plenty of opportunities for this rookie class also to step up and play plenty in this game against Pittsburgh, and especially with injuries elsewhere. I think this team, this rookie class, is going to get a good, hard, long look in this preseason game. And then Rob and I discussed yesterday about the offensive and defensive line rotation. And I think, that'll be interesting to see, especially in the battle at right tackle. Jake Curran really has taken and risen to the occasion at right tackle, and so far has that starting nod. And Abe Lucas, obviously, as a rookie, he's going to have some struggles, some learning curves there. But I'm really excited for his future. And he's just a big athlete, and he's got that natural ability and natural length and size. So, and I want to see the rotation. Does Abe Lucas get in there early? Does he get some good tests against maybe the top two of the depth chart against the Pittsburgh Steelers? So I'm really hoping he gets in there. Jake Curran, does he continue to make a statement? Does he continue to earn that starting right tackle job? Does he continue to solidify himself as the starting right tackle? I know Ken Walker, how many carries does he get? Does he look good? And if you watched him in college, I mean, he was just one of the more dynamic running backs in college football. And does he look the same? Does he look like he's got that explosiveness, that toughness in his first NFL action? Again, not a ton you can really make finite statements about in the first preseason game. The Seahawks aren't going to, take a crown and put it on the head of Geno Smith or Drew Lock after this game. That's just not how Pete Carroll rolls, first of all. And it's not smart, second of all. So that's not going to happen. But you can start to see a little bit, and with preseason, you played with your ones, you had some success there at the quarterback position with your receivers, but did you play against second or third string, defensive backs, or did you not have as quality of a pass rush because TJ Watt wasn't in there? Lots of variables that go with preseason success, and we've seen it in Seahawks land. We've seen it throughout the preseasons. We have that guy, we have the Jazz Fergusons, the Casey Williams, where they light the world on fire in the preseason, and then they're nowhere to be found come roster cut day and come in the regular season when the chips really are down. So take these results obviously with a grain of salt. I'm most excited to see two things. The quarterbacks, what that looks like, especially like the disparity on the snaps, and whether they're going to go with how they're going to try to put each quarterback, Geno Smith and Drew Lock, in a position to succeed. And the rookies, I want the rookies to get their feet wet. I want them to get comfortable. Not only because I think especially in the rookies at cornerback, they've been used to hitting someone of the same color, same color jersey, same color helmet at practice, but this is them hitting the black and yellow, at what is that, Amerisher Field now? I can't even remember what it is. It's not Heinz Field anymore, which is a shame. But this is the big time now, at least a step up from what they've been getting at training camp. This is a different colored helmet, different colored jersey, and a guy that doesn't like him, and a guy that also is looking to prove himself and earn a job on the other side. So that competition there, I know that gets Pete Carroll riled up and excited. So, and lastly, I want to see a little bit of the defensive scheme. I know the Seahawks would frankly be dumb to reveal all their cards about the defensive changes to scheme they've made in the offseason, and where you put Jamal Adams, how do you best use him? This new 3-4 concept defense, they're obviously going to be pretty vanilla, I'd say, in this first game, but I'd like to see the new look and how it looks against an offense that's trying to dissect it truly in the Steelers. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of the changes there on defense. On Monday, Corbin and Rob will break down the game itself on Saturday, the Saturday's game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They'll break down what they saw, what they liked, what they didn't like, and just an overall takes from that game. And finally, football is at least somewhat back with some preseason football this weekend. I hope you all enjoy it. You can follow me at NickLee51. Thank you once again for joining today on this Blue Friday Locked On Seahawks. I hope you enjoy the game and enjoy yourselves in the summer weather, and go Hawks.